Faithful cabin girl to chief mutineer on Crew Brown. And it's not all the great helmsman has to worry about. There's the looming great iceberg ahead in the form of these results of the local and European elections. It's been titanic times for the great leader. So we asked the Observer's Andrew Rawnsley to find out if this week in Westminster has the makings of an epic disaster.
The waters here on the Thames may be calm, not so the political high seas.
Man overboard!
There goes unable seaman Tom Watson.
Woman overboard!
There goes midshipwoman Bev Hughes.
Another woman overboard!
There goes adult entertainments officer Jackie Smith.
Yet another one overboard!
And there goes cabin girl Hazel Blears.
And tonight, Cabinet Minister James Pennell has abandoned ship, telling Gordon Brown that he should quit before they're all drowned.
What's that you're saying? It's hard to hear over this storm. Was it something about rats and sinking ships?
Let us be clear about what is happening. The minister in charge of local government is resigning the day before the local elections. Isn't the fact that she's chosen today of all days to go a direct challenge to his authority?
Mr. Speaker, look, I think some people should take a step back here and understand what's been happening. In the last few weeks, the past few weeks have been difficult for every member on every side of this House. I think people have got to recognise in the politicking that goes on that there have been enormous pressures on people.
And I have to say the Prime Minister talks about pressures. Those pressures on the Communities Secretary and on others in his cabinet include number 10 directly briefing against them. The fact is what we see is a dysfunctional cabinet, a dysfunctional government led by a Prime Minister who cannot give a lead.
When several severe weather fronts come together at the same time, they call it a perfect storm. That's what's engulfing Captain Brown. There's the crisis of confidence in the economy caused by the recession. There's the crisis of confidence in Parliament caused by the expenses scandal. And then there's the crisis of confidence in the Prime Minister's ability to steer Labour to safe harbour.
His government is paralysed by indecision, crippled by infighting, exhausted after 12 long years. It's a tragedy that exactly at the time when people need help, need action, the country doesn't have a government, it has a void. Labour is finished. Isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious that the only choice now is between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats?
I seem to remember the Liberals saying that at every election that I've ever fought.
Among the many remarkable spectacles of the last week, we've had the senior officers fighting like rats in a sack about cabinet jobs. David Miliband has been very clear that he expects to stay as Foreign Secretary. Other members of the troubled ship Labour have been talking about themselves in the past tense. Alistair Darling, the ship's purser, had to pay back some expenses and at least at first seemed resigned to getting the heave-ho.
Gordon's been very supportive to me. I hope I work very closely with him, but it's his call, and he'll decide when he wants, if he wants a cabinet reshuffle, and he'll decide who he wants to be the ministers in that team.
Since he said that, the Chancellor has indicated that he wants to remain at number 11. Now, Alistair Darling may not be the most flamboyant of characters, but Prime Ministers should always beware quiet, greyish men whose loyalty has been stretched to breaking point by the boss. Remember how Sir Geoffrey Howe did for Margaret Thatcher. Another warning came from Barry Shearman, normally a very reliable old sea dog.
I'd like a secret ballot of the Parliamentary Labour Party to see if Gordon Brown still has the confidence of the party. If he wins a vote of confidence, he will lead the party into the next election. If he loses it, no, we'll have a leadership election and we'll have a fresh a fresh leader.
The dilemma for seasick Labour MPs is that it's high risk to change the helmsman in the middle of a storm, especially if you can't be sure that it will actually improve things. And you need a replacement captain, ready, willing and able to take over. Alan Johnson, ahoy!
If you saw Prime Minister's questions, you see someone who's determined, who's poised, the courage, the tenacity of Gordon Brown. He's doing the job, and he's doing it under difficult circumstances, made more difficult for him, but he's doing the job, and there's absolutely no one who could do that job better.
Can you do it better?
No.
But could anyone do worse? That's what the Labour Party is agonising about. If Gordon Brown can use a reshuffle to reassert his authority, then he may be able to lash himself to the wheel and ride out the perfect storm. But if a critical mass of his colleagues mutiny, then he faces a walk along the plank. Dangerous waters indeed.